Good evening. Good evening. Hello. I'm here, and maybe you are too, although I don't see anyone at this moment. If anyone is there, feel free to drop a comment. Love to say hello and let us know you're around. Tonight, we're going to talk about something. I was going to say something fun. The topic is generally something that people like to talk about, which is gold, but it's not necessarily going to be fun. Mostly because we're not going to get any of the gold. That's usually why people like gold or the opportunity to maybe somehow get some gold. But I think as we look a little bit more into this, we might all be very, very disappointed. If you haven't seen this channel before, if you haven't been here before, welcome. I am your Maverick Pilgrim, and we're going to be taking a look tonight at this huge, huge discovery of gold in Uganda. And what does it mean? What does it mean for us? Because actually, it does have an impact for us, even though we're nowhere near the African continent and probably will not be heading off to Uganda to jump into the gold mines. It still is going to impact us. And that's what we're going to take a look at tonight for a little bit. The articles that we will look at, I will drop into the description, or I should say, into the description below. And so then if you want to look at that and like to comment on it later, feel free to do that. So I'm going to drop those in there, but we're going to look at them live, just like so. Like so. There we go. Like so. So here is the discussion where we're going to start tonight. Uganda says, and this, just to be clear, this article is from the 8th of June. So last month, Uganda says exploration results show that it has 31 million tons of gold ore. 31 million, not 31 million pounds, 31 million tons. Now, because it's African, you could also, and I haven't found it in here specifically, but if it's most likely a metric ton, which is even larger than a regular ton. It's, instead of being 2,000 pounds per ton, it's 2,200 pounds per ton. And so we're talking about quite a bit of gold. That is big enough to where I will need to find a calculator to figure out how many pounds of gold that is. It is such a huge, huge amount of gold. So initially, when you hear something like that, you would think, this is great news for Uganda. Uganda isn't the richest country in Africa. It's not the absolute poorest, but it's not the most well off. They do have a lot of advantages. There's a lot of tourism that goes around through there. They used to be a British colony, so there's a lot of connection back to the Commonwealth. And I have visited a few times. I have a lot of friends there. It's not a bad place to go. It's actually pretty delightful, and it's beautiful. They call it the Pearl of Africa, and it is gorgeous. There are areas there that are just amazing to go and to see. And the people are wonderful. And because it was a British colony, if you ever happen to find yourself in Uganda, it's a wonderful place to take a holiday, to take a trip, because it's pretty cheap and most people speak English. It's like the perfect combination if you're going to go and visit. And so you would think that if they had discovered 31 million tons of gold, that there would be a lot of excitement around there, and there might be. However, this is not going to turn out, I think, the way that a lot of people think it's going to turn out. So you'll notice here the 31 million tons, and it wants to attract some big investors. And here is where the problems begin. Uganda does not have a massive infrastructure to be able to actually do anything with this gold. This is where the problem comes from. If we continue to look down in here, you'll start to see where some of these problems lie here. Muyida, this person that Wagagai, I'm probably mispronouncing that, a Chinese company had set up mines in Busia in the eastern in Busia in eastern Uganda and was expected to start production this year. Notice this. Wagagai had invested $200 million, he said, in its mines will have a refining unit. So the mines over there are being run essentially by foreign interests. There are already so many different instances where Uganda could be taking advantage of things that they have, but they don't have the infrastructure to do it. Look at that fire theft radio. Thank you so much. 62 billion pounds. 62 billion pounds. That's an insane amount of gold. It's not fathomable how much that is as far as if we were to gather it all together. The problem is that that amount is inaccessible. It's so much, and it is in a place where it is difficult to get. They need to bring in these foreign investors. This is the beginning of problems. Already they have a problem in Uganda with foreign investments coming in, and it's a little bit of the sort of economic hitman sort of thing. If you haven't read that book, you should. But the idea is you come in and you basically say, oh, we'll help you do this thing. And so we're going to do this. And so you do it. And what ends up happening is this African country ends up going into debt and going into debt to the point where they can't pay it any longer. And so what do? They trade. They trade resources, or they trade the things that they were actually paying them to extract. So this is most likely what's going to happen with this. So if you look here, the company will compulsorily acquire 15% stake in every mining operation, and investors will be required to sign a production sharing agreement with the government. So here's the problems: foreign investors, corruption in the government. But there's more. So it's not just, oh, that's so sad they won't get it. This is actually enough gold to sway and to move the economic situation for countries outside of Uganda, outside of Africa. It does have an impact on the rest of Africa, though, which we'll get to in a moment. Here is the other issue. Uganda's gold discovery is worth $12.8 trillion. That's put into dollars. It sounds even more impressive in Ugandan shillings, which we'll look at some of those numbers here in a bit. $12 trillion worth of gold in Uganda. The issues that we have that will ripple outside of Uganda is this: the working of Bitcoin and gold. The current situation of the world is that gold, the price of gold, the actual gold market, is now almost at this competition point with Bitcoin. If you went back, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, everybody's freaking out about Bitcoin. Anybody who knows anything about Bitcoin knows that it's not going to be a huge problem. Investors were trying to shed it, trying to get rid of their Bitcoin before they lost their shirt. Everybody's holding on to it. You can see that Bitcoin's starting to go back up, or at least it's stabilizing, starting to go back up. When you see crashes like this, a lot of people want to get out. That's a time when a lot of people will take advantage of the situation. You will most likely start to see some of these things happen with Bitcoin, because here's the other side of this. Gold is seen as almost a competitor, or in some way working with or alongside or on the same shelf as cryptocurrencies, specifically with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is called digital gold, right? The chaotic events. Yeah, there could be some really chaotic things happening in Uganda, but I think there's probably going to be some shoring up of some infrastructure first, for sure. So you look through here, and what they try to build a case for is the discovery of gold is going to have this impact on Bitcoin. And some will argue, and I've tried to find something definitive to say this is going to help Bitcoin, this is going to make Bitcoin worthless. What it really means, if we want to take it in a larger sort of idea, is because they have this gold, it means they actually just are given the ability to manipulate. So you could say, oh, it's going to make it better. Someone else say it's going to make it worse. But what it really means is there is now a pressure valve to not only impact the price of gold and the gold market, which is highly manipulated already, and this is going to make it far worse. We'll look at in a second, but it's also potentially going to have an impact to Bitcoin. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, they will want to make Bitcoin worth more so that they have more money. But how a lot of these individuals will normally think is they think long term. So if they can find a way to drive Bitcoin price down, then they can buy more of it. That's sort of the more the mentality. And then everyone else who's jittery jumps out. I'm definitely not giving any kind of investing advice of any kind. I'm not trying to say any of that. But what I'm trying to say is these things are used to manipulate markets to just shift wealth back and forth. So while politically someone might be saying we need to redistribute wealth to help the needy, on the other side of things, they manipulate those things so that they get richer. Just as an example, we'll move on to the next point here. During the crash, 1929, right, the prelude to the Great Depression, you saw a great stock market crash. The individuals who kept their heads and started to buy were the ones at the end of the Great Depression who ended up owning a lot more than they had in the beginning. It's how you look at the opportunities. Now, again, I'm not trying to give any kind of advice, but what I am trying to say is that feeling in the moment of either buy or sell has to be sort of balanced out with the understanding of where things might be going. So then there's two different paths that are actually three different paths that we're going to take a look at here in just a second. This newspaper here is from, it's not a real newspaper, it's just a webpage, but it's from India. Uganda announces the discovery of 31 million. Oh, here you go. Metric tons. There you go. So metric ton is 2,200 pounds. I don't know if we have to update your calculations there, Chuck, but may need to. You'll notice here Uganda's announced the discovery of 300 metric tons for the country. Now, a question is why, it is news anyway. India, this is really impactful for India. India is one of the largest purchasers of gold. They have a huge gold market there. Jewelry, lots of other things. But they are the largest purchaser of gold normally just as a sort of standard rule. That could be different because of different things, different instabilities throughout the world. Different countries will buy more gold or less gold. We saw that with China. We saw it with Russia. We see it with individuals. Certain people say, things aren't going so well. I think I'll buy some more gold while I've got a strong dollar. So all of this is happening in the market where, as far as in India, they are hoping that the price will go down so that they can buy more of it up. Oh, yeah. Revised number 68 billion, 200 million. That's much more specific. Thank you. India most likely is hoping that price will come down. But the thing is, we don't really know how this is going to match out. This is an insane number here too. This amount is so this 31 million, we said it was 12 trillion. That is 4 times the GDP of India. Just right there. 4 times the annual GDP of the nation of India, which is an insane number. And the reason why that's important, you can see how this amount could actually be a way for them to manipulate not just markets in Africa, not just markets in the United States, but it could devastate Asia, depending on how this rolls. Hello, Sabrina. Wonderful. Glad to meet you. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you enjoyed the reel. I had fun making it. And so you see, everything I was doing today was kind of leading to this discussion about gold and where we're going to go with this. So you came at a very good time. So again, we're looking at this. Uganda claims exploration surveys discovered. Now, the reason why this headline is important is because exploration surveys discover 31 million. Do we even really know that that is the actual amount? This amount, which is now being used to make some pretty important calculations, especially for Uganda to try to get investors. So if they think I've got this amount and they find someone to come and help them do these things, they will then start to negotiate a price. Do that. We already saw in the other article that that Chinese company is saying that they'll take 15% just off straight off the top. So you already have people starting to make these calculations. We don't even really know how much there is. They're just saying this. And if you actually look into some of these articles, it is some of these foreign investor type of mining operations that are giving some of these calculations. Do we even really know that that is the amount? It could be far more. Who knows? We don't. We'll find out, I suppose. Another connection here. U.S. sanctions, the impact on Africa. Now, this is from earlier. This is in March. This is before the discovery. But why this is important, there were already gold refinery sanctions going on in Africa. And one of those reasons why had to do with their interactions with people that the West didn't really like them interacting with, namely Russia. Russia is highly, highly invested in Uganda and Ugandan gold. Look at this. Putin's masterstroke. Biden has done the damage, and it's time for Putin to come into the picture and take steps to strengthen an already powerful Russian economy. Now, you look at the date on this. This is from June 26th. That's quite a picture there. June 26th. What you have going on here is you have Russia, who's already deeply invested in these refining operations there as well. Same way China is, but Russia was more specific there. China gets into other things like building roads and building bridges and those types of things, building a lot of other infrastructure, and then really kind of banking on the fact that, no pun intended, but banking on the fact that Uganda is not going to be able to pay back the debt on time, so they will hold the debt, right? So they basically get kind of a stranglehold there. Russia is doing a similar thing, kind of. Theirs is much more in the actual refining of the gold. Now we'll pause here for a second because I want to kind of tell a little story. First of all, am I talking too fast? Are we okay here? I don't want to lose anybody just because I get excited to try to get through all the information. But I want to take us back in time to the 1800s. All right. California, near Sumter's Mill, there was someone who found a half pea size nugget of gold and kicked off the California gold rush. That following year, you had an influx of people just running to California to try to get some gold. I'm glad you're still with us, Sabrina. Excellent. They came to California to try to get gold. This is not the same sort of situation that you would find in Africa. The gold and the gold deposits in California were relatively high. They're actually pretty high. People could just go to a river, to a stream, to a creek, and just pick it out of the water. This was not having to go really down deep, at least those first deposits, how they were being discovered. So they would go, and it was a chance. They were coming from everywhere to try to come to California for a chance to find some gold, right? You don't really hear a whole lot of people clamoring to get to Uganda of this news, at least not normal people, right? I think I'm going to just pack up and we're going to head on over to Uganda. We're just going to find some gold. That's not how it works over there. In California, it did. Now, this is the big difference. And this is the thing that really needs to be understood. We called them 49ers, and we've got this kind of legendary idea of what happened in California. All these people came over. Everybody got rich. I don't know if you've seen the movie. I think it's Paint Your Wagon. Now, it's real old. I don't know. It's a musical with Lee Marvin and Clint Eastwood. It's one of his first movies that he was in. But it's this town where everybody's a miner, and there's no women in this town. It's just all these miners in this town, and they're all striking and getting gold, and they're all coming around, and there's just gold dust everywhere. And there's this plan, not to ruin it, but there's a plan to go underneath all of these different buildings and just scrape up all the gold dust and get rich doing it that way. But what it does is it cements this idea that people are just going out and just finding gold mines and just like making money, right? I mean, we can still try. Yeah, I'm down. Let's go. Let's go see if we can what we can do. But the situation that you had there, this idea was everyone's going out there and getting rich. Truth is, within a year or two after the gold rush, the kind of the height of the gold rush, most people just went bust. You ever heard the term boomtown? There are these towns that came up and they popped up and just were built around this idea that everyone's going to go get find gold. And when they didn't find any, or the mine only had a small amount, those towns just disappeared. Not true. The people left. The towns are still there. You can still go around and find all these ghost towns because people thought we're going to make a ton of money, and then they didn't. But you know who did? Anybody who went and set up shop to sell supplies. They so some people said, "Oh, there's going to be a gold rush." They didn't even bother with gold. They went and sold pans, carts, pickaxes, horses, whatever. Even just set up. Hey, I'm gonna be an outpost to sell supply. Gotta get food. Definitely got to get coffee and beans. It seems like that's all they probably ate was coffee and beans. But you had to set all these things up. Those people who sold the supplies and everything that someone would need, all the resources to go and get gold, those people made the most money. That's how the West was actually won. It wasn't found with all of the gold necessarily. It was the thought of setting up these outposts, these places to sell all of these people because they're going to come out and they think I'm going to make a bazillion dollars finding gold. So I have no problem investing $1,000 to get pickaxes and pans, pans for panning for gold and carts and all. They had no problem doing all that because they thought the return on investment was going to be there. In Uganda, who do you think are those people who are selling pickaxes and pans and horses and all that kind of stuff and all the supplies? It's straight up Russia, China, US, if they can get in there, other European groups, if they can get in there. India used to be there to help with building all these infrastructure things down in the 70s. They might be trying to come back, especially because of the gold market and how it goes there. So this idea that this gold is going to be good for Uganda, most of the opportunity is already shored up. There's very few people who are going to be able to go over there. Normal, we'd say, is normal people, not part of some elite group, not part of a corporation, not part of a government. But they're not going to be regular people who are going to be going over there and just make $1 million trying to capitalize on this. What's going to end up happening is these companies, like one in China and in Russia, they're the ones who are going to be making the most money because they will already have all the supplies. They already have all those things. And instead of Uganda saying, no, we're going to take care of it, we'll get our own stuff, they're now kind of over a barrel. They have to have them do it because these exploratory groups are already there and they've already got some agreements, and they say, oh, we're already here. Let's sign some things up, and why don't we just take care of the gold that way? That's going to be the problem. And how that's going to ripple out is in a couple of different ways. Whoops. More gold, less Bitcoin. We already talked about this, but there's going to be an impact to the crypto market. When? That is the part we don't know, and that's the most dangerous part because it does mean that at a certain point they can manipulate those things. Just the fact that they could come in and they could actually change the economies outside of Uganda, that power is then there. What it is it's a proxy economic war that takes place through this amount of gold. And again, it is such a massive amount of gold. It is difficult for us to really wrap our head around how much there really is. I mean, if that's really the amount. Moving on a little bit here, do you kind of want to get to some of these last points? Gold worth billions smuggled out of Africa. Notice the date on this one. This is from 2019. There is already a market for pirated gold to get smuggled. So you already have these existing agreements that then would become cheaper. and advantageous for certain groups if they could somehow get in on this, smuggle this out. Now, without going through all of these different things here, it's normally smuggled through Uganda, through the Congo. It somehow makes its way a lot of times to the Middle East, probably to was it United Arab Emirates. It'll somehow make its way somewhere around in there, which is also convenient because they do not extradite. So if someone is caught, someone is it's great for smuggling, because if you're caught at the end point, they don't extradite. High prices are luring Africans into prospecting for gold. So this goes back to that, you could have some of these independent groups. Some of these where it says, oh, it's luring them to prospect. Do not think, the lowly 49er with their hat and, going out with their, their little mule going out somewhere to go find gold. What most likely these are, they're called artisanal mining. Or mining operations, artisanal mining operations. And that's just a fancy word for basically what they do for blood diamonds, except they're doing it for earth minerals. This is also the massive scandal that's taking place for a lot of the things that we now depend on, like cell phone parts, parts for electric cars, parts for you put them on your roof to get things. What do you call them? Solar panels. So all of these different things, they demand rare earth minerals. These types of mines are popping up all over Africa, not just Uganda, but all over Africa. And a lot of them they're being sort of commissioned by different groups. A lot of the Chinese groups are going in and doing that. And that's where they're getting some of these rare earth minerals. They're probably just going to kind of shift over and start doing it for gold. What that then means is it's going to get smuggled out. No one is going to benefit except for essentially these pirates who are moving this stuff through, these smugglers who are getting out of the country, and they are then eating up all of that profit from that small mine. And when we say artisanal mine, again, not old prospector, what it normally is a little kid who's able to work down there. They just tie a rope around them. They just lower them down into this thing so they can somehow make their way down there. If they die, they just pull them back up. They just tie another kid down and send them down. It's horrible. It's terrible. But that's what's happening. They will probably just shift some of those things over there. With that amount of gold and that amount of money that could be made from that, it is going to be really bad for some of the poorest and most vulnerable in Uganda. It's going to be terrible. Wow. Cookies? Okay. Sure. All the cookies. Gold exports hit 3-year high. This was, where's the date on this one? They moved it. There it is. This is from 2020. 3-year high after refinery hub emerges. But guess who owns these refinery hubs? Do you think they're Ugandan owned? Unfortunately, they're usually not. This is the same report. I actually think I already showed that article there. The illegal gold market. Again, same sort of thing. We don't have to go back through all these. What I did want to do is to actually pull up the current numbers. So if we have this number here, 1692.61, that'd be today's number. Multiplied by, let's see, Chuck, what do you get? 68,200,000,000. Goodness, I actually don't think that my calculator goes up that high. I can't even, my calculator won't even go up that high. To calculate out the actual amount of money that you could break out, I know they said 12 trillion. We'll go with that number, even though it's probably a month or so old. We'll go with that. But the $12 trillion amount, when you break that out into those different mines in those different areas, actually can be devastating for a different reason. Let's go here. So this is average salary in 2022. Okay. So a person working in Uganda, there's a low and a high. So salaries range from the lowest, which is that $663,000 number. That's Ugandan shillings. It sounds like a lot. It's not. Their notes are in tens of thousands. All right, so I just did the calculation here. A Ugandan shilling is well, we won't bother with that part. But that number comes out to $174. Well, if I round out, 175. 175 bucks on the low end. And what is the high end? The high end is going to be 11,700,000, which is 3,000. That is quite a range. Low end is 175, high end is 3,000. But that is a per month. I'm sorry, per month is 2 million. And so these salaries will range from this amount here. So they give it to you in this average. And I can tell you the average person is earning far lower than this. So that lowest average is probably more typical of what they're getting in a year. Why this is bad? You think, well, they will all have more money. If we just go and just flood, give them all money, it should be better. It's not, because what ends up happening is not everybody gets that same amount, but there will be enough to start to swing markets. So someone will have a fruit stand, a vegetable stand, and they'll start selling things for more because they can get more. And so then the poorer ones on that scale will not be able to afford the food. So if you start actually just under the table increasing a section of a community's wealth without all of the other mechanisms that normally go through and the taxation and all those things, and to see the whole group, the whole community benefit from it, then you'll see even more disparaging numbers. So you'll see even more people not able to afford food because the whole community hasn't grown with that influx of money. Does that make sense? It's going to be bad. It is a way for them to not just manipulate Africa. This is going to extend back out. It's something that can be really, really devastating. Should you buy Ugandan currency? Well, I can't give any advice, but I will say it would probably be a good thing to keep looking at Uganda for a period of time. There will probably be a lot of investments going on in those areas. So, hey, take a look. I don't know. I'm not here to give advice, but go and see what you can do. But I will say that it sounds like it would be something great for Uganda. This is most likely going to be the opportunity for more people to either steal gold, influence, or power in an area that already has an unequal footing for so many different groups. You still have people who can't afford food. They still have to grow bananas in their front yard to go out and to try to sell them to try to get something. I've been there many times, and they're a wonderful, just a beautiful people. They really are. And to see something else come to that country that could possibly squash whole sections is just heartbreaking. But I know for one, because I have some of those connections there, I am going to be trying to put together some opportunities to give real help, not put money to different organizations, but different ways to actually provide help for people there, including they have the largest refugee camps in the world. The South Sudanese are there. There's lots of different things that can be done. And so all I can say is if you're watching this either live or later, I will try to find opportunities for people to help specifically with things that are going to help them on the ground, people who really do need it most. And you got to really be careful, because a lot of times you could be feeding a machine, and we don't want to do that. So, how do we sum all this up? This sounds like it'd be something glorious for Uganda. It's going to be like it was in the United States, and people are going to find a way to pull themselves up and to really get to use this money for them. Unfortunately, with all of the things that are going on, it sounds like it's going to become even worse for them there. And it then provides the ability for those with power to gain even more power and influence, even to manipulate our own gold markets, and to manipulate even the crypto markets. The other thing is silver. Silver, we were going to talk about it before. Silver is tied to gold in many different ways. Just as a market, people buy silver in order to buy gold, things like that. Silver is also a major component in a lot of the things that we use all the time. It's not necessarily a rare earth mineral or metal, but it is definitely something that is used in a lot of these things that we're talking about, and it's also consumable. And so the supply of silver is also something to keep a look at. Silver is also probably suppressed as far as its value. And so again, it's something else to look at. So people who have silver, the manipulation of crypto and gold is probably going to also impact silver. Just something to think about. And again, is it positive? Is it negative? If I hold gold or silver, is that good? I have no idea. But what it does is it provides an opportunity for those groups to be able to manipulate things to help themselves. And that never turns out well for anybody, really, except for the people on the very top. So, yeah, I would keep an eye on this, take a look. But I think if you think of it, maybe write it down. Pray for Uganda, pray for the people of Uganda, and we'll try to find some opportunities to give some help. And but pay attention to what's going on, because it's not as it always seems, right? It's always an opportunity for us to see things different and to think different. Thank you all for being here if you're here live. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off. Have a wonderful evening. And for all of you watching it later, have yourself a good day. Bye-bye.